U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has declared an end to what he calls politically correct leadership in the U.S. military. In a speech to hundreds of American military officials this morning, Hegseth said woke culture in the Army is over.
For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore.
Hegseth's address focused on his own long-used talking points that painted a picture of a military that's been hamstrung by so-called woke policies. Joining me now to discuss is Glenn Ignazio, military expert and retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander. Glenn, good to see you. Thanks so much for being with us. So, Pete Hegseth is calling for an overhaul of the military. We didn't play the clip, but he essentially said, these are his words, not mine, no fat troops or generals, no facial hair, physical standards for men that women would have to meet. What do you make of all of this and how it could reshape the military?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of these things. It's a big change for where the military has been. And what I can definitely say is, I came in many years ago at the end of the Cold War, and those standards that he's talking about are actually very, very similar to then. And I've even seen sort of some of the degradation of standards. So again, looking at it straightforward without the politics, again, the generals should be able to present themselves as commanders, and they should be representing themselves appropriately and meet the same standards that they expect their soldiers to do. So I get that. But looking at other things, it is time that we do focus, at least in the United States, on moral lethality versus what we weren't doing, which was we were diluting some things of how people were getting promoted. People were more interested in how many college credits were you getting rather than what is your performance in the job you do have in the military. Now, there's other things that need to be discussed, and like shaving waivers. Certain people need shaving waivers from a health standpoint. That should be appropriate. But again, it's getting away from some of this choice stuff and more focused on lethality, and we can explain some of that in some of these other details.
Well, let's talk about the impact of this in terms of, first of all, morale. And do you think, Glenn, that military members, some of them may resign?
Yeah, well, I mean, like terms of enlistment are to a certain time, but I think that, if people are re-upping, in other words, re-enlisting. Now, interesting enough, the statistics are showing that the recruiting is up. In fact, a lot of the 2026 numbers for recruitment has actually been gathered already, which is actually pretty good. And then a lot more of the retainment. So like the United States Marine Corps' retention objectives for 2026 were already fulfilled. So there is a change there because it's more of a focus on the performance. Now, one of the things that I think could have been worked on, and there's a lot of semantics about this, but what I've always stated is that the mission determines the requirements, and saying, a male standard or so forth is probably not going to be received by some. But the idea that it's one standard for everybody. I mean, I've seen incredible women that have completely beat me in so many different things, including flying. And I have seen also, it doesn't matter what race, what gender you are. I've seen stellar performers, and I've seen those that are not that good. But I'll tell you, there's some great people out there that can do the job regardless of gender or race. And I think that's where the focus is. And honestly, it should be. I want the best person next to me in the cockpit. I want the best person next to me. And I don't care if it's a male, female, or whatever their race may be.
All right, I want to ask you quickly. I have like 20 seconds left.
Sure.
Trump suggesting now that U.S. cities are training grounds for military forces from a strategic standpoint. Risks and benefits, real quick.
I don't think it's a good thing to say it's strategic. Anytime they are there, they are learning. But it's also more about the Guard being there. They're from the community. They can work in the community and learn and execute appropriately with their people and the citizens of their area. But strategically training, no, they should be done with that training before they're put in place so they know what to do.
Glenn Ignazio, always great to chat with you. Thanks again.